My ex who cheated on me with her trainer just reached out after a year of silence. Now her life is falling apart and she wants me back. Hey everyone, I 28M just had a weird situation pop up and I honestly don't know how to process it. Maybe getting it off my chest will help. Names are fake, obviously. A little over a year ago, I was in a serious 3-year relationship with Megan, 27F. Everything seemed great between us, at least from my perspective. We were talking about moving in together and even had casual talks about marriage someday. Around that time, I started getting into fitness and introduced Megan to my personal trainer, Jake, 30M. Jake was a super charismatic guy, and he and Megan hit it off. But I didn't think much of it, just assumed they had a good trainer-client relationship. After a few months of them working together, Megan started acting more distant. She'd be busy after her workouts, not come home until late, and her phone would suddenly always be on Do Not Disturb. I'd ask her about it, but she'd blow me off saying I was being paranoid. Well, turns out I wasn't paranoid. One night, Megan left her phone on the counter while she was showering, and it lit up with texts from Jake. Let's just say they weren't talking about meal plans or workout routines. I confronted her immediately, and she broke down, admitted she'd been cheating with him for months. She told me she fell in love with Jake and that it wasn't about me, it was just something she couldn't help. She packed her things and moved in with him within a week. That was the worst time of my life. It felt like my entire world had been ripped apart. I blocked her on everything and focused on picking up the pieces of my life. Therapy gym, hanging with friends, I slowly started to move on, even though it left a deep scar. Then, out of the blue, a few days ago, she reached out to me on a new number. At first, I wasn't going to reply, but curiosity got the better of me. She started off saying she missed me, that she's sorry for everything, and that she's made a huge mistake. Apparently, things with Jake went downhill fast. She found out he was cheating on her. Oh, the irony. They've broken up. And now she's stuck, lonely, and miserable. She even admitted she's been thinking about me for months, but was too ashamed to reach out sooner. She said she realizes what she had with me was real and that she wants to make things right. She claims she's willing to do anything to prove she's changed and asked if we could meet up to talk. Here's the thing, Reddit. Part of me still has some feelings for her, but another part of me is screaming to block her again and never look back. I don't know if I can ever trust her after what she did, but hearing her sound so broken on the phone stirred something up in me. Maybe it's pity, maybe it's nostalgia, or maybe I'm just an idiot. Update. My ex who cheated on me with her trainer reached out. Here's what happened after we met up. Hey everyone, I wasn't planning on doing an update, but after meeting up with my ex, I feel like I need to get this off my chest. If you didn't read my first post, the quick version is my ex, Megan, 27F, cheated on me a year ago with her trainer, Jake, and left me for him. Now, she's back saying things went south with him and she wants to get back together. So we met up yesterday for coffee. I went in not really knowing what to expect. Part of me wanted closure. Part of me was still curious about what she had to say. We talked for a good couple of hours and it was a lot to process. Megan started by apologizing. She admitted that leaving me for Jake was the biggest mistake of her life, and she's been paying for it ever since. Without getting into too many details, things between them weren't as perfect as she thought they'd be, and the whole relationship basically crashed and burned. She's been struggling ever since mentally, emotionally, financially. It's been a rough year for her. But here's the part that I wasn't really prepared for. She also brought up a lot of things about our relationship that I never considered. She said that while cheating on me was 100% wrong, she felt like I wasn't the best boyfriend either. According to her, I didn't always make her feel appreciated, and she resented me for that. She mentioned that I was emotionally distant at times, more focused on my work or hobbies, and she felt like she wasn't a priority. She didn't use it as an excuse. But she said that built-up resentment contributed to her being tempted by someone who made her feel wanted. Hearing that hit hard. I didn't see myself that way, but looking back, I can see where I might have dropped the ball. I thought I was being a good partner, but maybe I was blind to some of her needs. She said she spent a lot of time reflecting and realizes she should have talked to me about her feelings instead of stepping out. After we finished talking, she asked if we could try again. She claims she's learned from her mistakes and wants to rebuild what we had. She told me she's willing to take things slow and prove she's different now, but I'm torn. On one hand, I've done a lot of healing in the past year, and I don't know if I can or should go back. On the other hand, I can't lie. Hearing her admit her mistakes and explain her side of things made me feel something. Maybe it's closure, maybe it's sympathy, maybe it's old feelings creeping back. I honestly don't know. Now I'm just confused. Part of me wants to move on and never look back, but another part of me is questioning whether we both made mistakes that could be fixed now that we've grown. I can't tell if she's just trying to ease her guilt or if there's a real chance at something better. What would you guys do? Is there any point in trying to rebuild, or is it better to leave the past where it belongs? Story 2. I caught my wife with another man and I am utterly devastated. I am numb and in shock, so please bear with me if I'm not very coherent as I type this. I am using a throwaway account because my wife uses this platform quite often. My 37M, wife 35F, and I have been married for 8 years, together for 10. We have been through thick and thin. She is my best friend and the love of my life. We don't have any kids. We wanted them, but it wasn't in the cards for us. Today, during my lunch break, I decided to explore a new area, to try out a different place. As I strolled along the sidewalk, I saw my wife stepping out of a coffee shop across the street with a man I recognized from her work. They were smiling and chatting, and then the man slipped his arm around her waist, pulling her closer, leaned in and kissed her, and she kissed him back. I froze, unable to process what was unfolding before me. In that moment, everything around me faded into a blur. I stood there, rooted to the spot, a storm of emotions brewing inside. Confusion was the first wave to crash over me, followed closely by disbelief. This couldn't be happening. Not to us? I wanted to scream, to run across the street and demand an explanation, but my feet felt heavy, as if the weight of the moment had anchored me to the pavement. As they turned to walk away, still caught up in their own world, I realized they didn't even see me. A jarring mix of hurt and betrayal pierced through the shock. I can't wrap my mind around what I saw. I love this woman more than life itself. I have given her all of me. I have loved her unconditionally. I am crushed, gutted. I can't remember how the rest of the day went after that. It was all a blur. I couldn't face going back home to face her, so I told her I needed to stay at a friend's house tonight because he's going through a rough time and could use the support. She bought it. I am sleeping in my car tonight. My world is falling apart and I don't know what to do now. Any advice would be appreciated. TLDR, I saw my wife cheating with colleague. She doesn't know I know. Last night was one of the hardest nights of my life. I spent it in the car, needing space to process everything. A hotel wasn't an option for reasons I've explained elsewhere. Knowing my wife's routine and that she leaves for work before I do, I returned home in the morning after she had already left to shower and change before heading to work myself. Where I'm at mentally, I feel deeply hurt and betrayed. All night I couldn't stop thinking about the life we've built together and how it now feels destroyed. I've been trying to recall any red flags I might have missed. I'm at a loss because we've always been good at talking through everything. Recently, though, she's been busier at work, which has led to less communication between us, but I didn't see it as a major issue at the time. A few months ago, she mentioned missing the excitement in our relationship. We talked about it and agreed that this is normal in long-term relationships, and we committed to taking steps to bring that spark back. We followed through, aside from occasional busy periods. I take care of myself and I think I'm an interesting person and a good husband, so I'm left wondering if she sought excitement elsewhere. That's the only explanation I can come up with, and it makes me incredibly angry. Right now, I'm feeling 80% hurt and 20% angry, but I know the anger will grow in the coming days and weeks. As for the guy, I only know his name and that he works closely with my wife on a new project. I assume he'll be part of the upcoming work trip too. She's never mentioned him beyond that, and I have no idea if he's married or in a relationship. Here's what I'm planning to do next. 1. I've already spoken to a few divorce lawyers, and while I live in a fault-based location, Proving adultery in court can be a long and expensive process. Also, we need to be separated before filing for divorce. 2. Tonight. I plan to go home and act like I don't know anything, which will be difficult. So, I can gather more information about the extent of her relationship with this guy. When I confront her, I'll reveal one thing I've found out and see if she admit the rest. I also want to learn more about the colleague. If he has a partner, she deserves to know as well. The challenge here is I'm not sure how to gather more details. Some have suggested hiring a private investigator, but that feels extreme. If anyone has experience with this or other ways to get more information, I'd appreciate your input. I'm also not sure how I'll feel once I know everything. I've always said I wouldn't forgive cheating, but I still love my wife. Maybe once I have all the facts, I'll see things differently and be ready to move forward with separation and divorce. 3. I've opened a new bank account and applied for a new credit card. I've updated HR of the account information to ensure my paycheck is deposited into the new account. Over my dead body, will I let her spend any more of my money on him, if that's what she's been doing? 4. I'm going to use work as an excuse to avoid intimacy with her. Honestly, throwing myself into work and handling these next steps will help keep me from losing my mind. 5. Therapy will come later. For now, it's easier to type this all out than to speak about it. Talking about it aloud would make it too real, and I'm not ready for that yet. I also don't want any friends or family to know about this for now. Speaking with lawyers was different because it felt more practical. 6. I will reach out to my doctor to request the STI tests. A few other points to make. My wife and I don't have typical jobs. We sometimes work at the office, but we also spend a lot of time meeting clients at various locations. So we spend a lot of time commuting, which means grabbing coffee, lunch on the go. We work in a large metropolitan area, and we've never crossed paths during the day until yesterday. It so happened that yesterday, during one of my commutes, I happened to be at a location a little further out, which is why I decided to grab lunch in that area. Some people took issue with my writing style. Writing has always been an outlet for me, and it helps me process my feelings. I will leave it at that. My wife and I know each other's Reddit username, so I didn't post this on my main account where she could see it. This is a sub she doesn't visit, so it's unlikely she come across this. But if she does, then fuck it, it is what it is. I caught my wife with another man and I'm utterly devastated. Update 2. I found out everything and it's worse than I could have imagined. This is an update to my previous post, check post history. I found out everything and it's worse than I could have imagined. Last night, I checked her phone while she was in the shower. She had left her phone in the bedroom and it was not passcode protected. Maybe she thought I wouldn't check. Maybe she got too comfortable lying to my face. Either way, she made a mistake. I went through her phone and found the separate messaging app to communicate with him, and that's when everything unraveled. Their entire relationship was right there. There were thousands of texts and even pictures, some lasting well into the night while I was asleep next to her. It wasn't just a fling. This has been going on for months. They'd been meeting up regularly. Coffee shops, hotels, client lunches. She's been calling him pet names. There was talk of missed moments and wishing for more time together. The worst part? She has been telling him things she used to say to me, word for word. You make me feel alive. The exact phrase she used when we first started dating. That was our thing, and she recycled it for him. I felt physically sick. After years of being together, of building a life, that's how she sees it. Like everything we've built together meant nothing. I also found out the work trip she's going on next week was not just business. They've planned everything, dinners, hotel rooms, more alone time. She's treating this like some kind of romantic getaway with him, while I sit here like a fool. I thought I'd already hit my breaking point. I thought nothing could hurt worse than the betrayal I'd uncovered. But then I found out something that knocked the wind right out of me like a punch straight to the gut. I booked us a cabin for the weekend 2 months ago. It was an opportunity for us to reconnect, just the two of us. A day before the trip, she said her company needed her to drive to another city for the weekend to meet with clients, that it was urgent and she couldn't get out of it. She was so apologetic, especially because it was 24 hours out and non-refundable. She even promised she'd make it up to me. I remember telling her it was okay, that I understood. I even felt bad for her having to miss out on what I thought would be a special time for us. I didn't take the trip that weekend because I didn't want to go without her. And as annoying as it was, I accepted that the reservation had gone to waste. I found that she had sent the booking confirmation to him and nearly lost it. Then I saw the photos, walking by the lake, sitting by the fireplace, wine glasses in hand. The weekend that was supposed to be about us became their little fantasy escape. I can't even describe how that felt. She canceled our trip to take him instead. I realized then the full extent of her betrayal, and I lost it. I almost threw her phone across the room, but I didn't because all the evidence was on there. When she finally came out of the shower, I couldn't pretend anymore, and anyway she could tell something was very wrong, so I confronted her. I asked her if there was something she needed to tell me. She said no, but I could see the panic set in. I pressed harder, told her I knew everything. The emails, the lunches, the hotel stays, her fucking affair. She started crying and apologizing. I asked her why she had done it. She said it was a mistake, that she got caught up in the excitement, that she missed the feeling of something new. I asked if she loved him. She said no, she loved me and wanted to be with me. I asked if she slept with him and she said yes. I told her how much she had destroyed me, how she shattered everything we built. I asked her if she ever thought about what this would do to me, to us. She just sat there, crying and apologizing over and over. I told her I was done, that there was no coming back from this. She begged for forgiveness. I told her to get out, to go be with him since she wanted him so badly. She broke down, insisting she didn't want him, that she wanted me and she'd do anything to fix this. By then, it was almost midnight, so I told her to sleep in the guest bedroom. She asked for her phone back, but I refused, saying I was holding on to it for now. When she tried to argue, I warned her, if she took the phone from me, I'd leave. She didn't want that, so I kept it. Once I was alone, I forwarded the entire thread of their messages to myself. I went through them in more detail. That's when I found out that the guy is married, too. There was no mention of kids, though. This morning, we barely acknowledged each other. No words were exchanged. I gave her the phone back, but I made it clear, if she goes on her work trip, she'd come back to an empty house. She promised she wouldn't go. She apologized again, but I wasn't ready to hear it. After she left for work, I broke down. For the first time since this all started, I cried. Edit. I am coming to realize that my marriage is a sham, so this will be my last update on this sub. Tomorrow, I will go to the guy's house. I found his address from her Google Maps recent history. I have printed the message thread between them along with the pictures and will be giving them to his wife, who is unaware of what is going on as far as I know. I will also face this man who quite literally destroyed my life. I am done playing nice. Story 3. My ex who cheated on me with her trainer just reached out after a year of silence. Now her life is falling apart and she wants me back. Hey everyone, I, 28M, just had a weird situation pop up and I honestly don't know how to process it. Maybe getting it off my chest will help. Names are fake, obviously. A little over a year ago, I was in a serious 3-year relationship with Megan, 27F. Everything seemed great between us, at least from my perspective. We were talking about moving in together and even had casual talks about marriage someday. Around that time, I started getting into fitness and introduced Megan to my personal trainer, Jake, 30M. Jake was a super charismatic guy and he and Megan hit it off. But I didn't think much of it, just assumed they had a good trainer-client relationship. After a few months of them working together, Megan started acting more distant. She'd be busy after her workouts, not come home until late, and her phone would suddenly always be on Do Not Disturb. I'd ask her about it, but she'd blow me off, saying I was being paranoid. Well, turns out I wasn't paranoid. One night, Megan left her phone on the counter while she was showering, and it lit up with texts from Jake. Let's just say they weren't talking about meal plans or workout routines. I confronted her immediately, and she broke down, admitted she'd been cheating with him for months. She told me she fell in love with Jake and that it wasn't about me, it was just something she couldn't help. She packed her things and moved in with him within a week. That was the worst time of my life. It felt like my entire world had been ripped apart. I blocked her on everything and focused on picking up the pieces of my life. Therapy gym, hanging with friends, I slowly started to move on, even though it left a deep scar. Then, out of the blue, a few days ago, she reached out to me on a new number. At first, I wasn't going to reply, but curiosity got the better of me. She started off saying she missed me, that she's sorry for everything, and that she's made a huge mistake. Apparently, things with Jake went downhill fast. She found out he was cheating on her. Oh, the irony. They've broken up, and now she's stuck, lonely, and miserable. She even admitted she's been thinking about me for months, but was too ashamed to reach out sooner. She said she realizes what she had with me was real and that she wants to make things right. She claims she's willing to do anything to prove she's changed and asked if we could meet up to talk. Here's the thing, Reddit. Part of me still has some feelings for her, but another part of me is screaming to block her again and never look back. I don't know if I can ever trust her after what she did, but hearing her sound so broken on the phone stirred something up in me. Maybe it's pity, maybe it's nostalgia, or maybe I'm just an idiot. So here I am, trying to figure out if I should hear her out or tell her to stay in the past where she belongs. What would you guys do? Update. My ex who cheated on me with her trainer reached out. Here's what happened after we met up. Hey everyone, I wasn't planning on doing an update, but after meeting up with my ex, I feel like I need to get this off my chest. If you didn't read my first post, the quick version is my ex, Megan, 27F, cheated on me a year ago with her trainer Jake and left me for him. Now she's back saying things went south with him and she wants to get back together. So we met up yesterday for coffee. I went in not really knowing what to expect. Part of me wanted closure. Part of me was still curious about what she had to say. We talked for a good couple of hours and it was a lot to process. Megan started by apologizing. She admitted that leaving me for Jake was the biggest mistake of her life, and she's been paying for it ever since. Without getting into too many details, things between them weren't as perfect as she thought they'd be, and the whole relationship basically crashed and burned. She's been struggling ever since mentally, emotionally, financially. It's been a rough year for her. But here's the part that I wasn't really prepared for. She also brought up a lot of things about our relationship that I never considered. She said that while cheating on me was 100% wrong, she felt like I wasn't the best boyfriend either. According to her, I didn't always make her feel appreciated, and she resented me for that. She mentioned that I was emotionally distant at times, more focused on my work or hobbies, and she felt like she wasn't a priority. She didn't use it as an excuse, but she said that built-up resentment contributed to her being tempted by someone who made her feel wanted. Hearing that hit hard. I didn't see myself that way, but looking back, I can see where I might have dropped the ball. I thought I was being a good partner, but maybe I was blind to some of her needs. She said she spent a lot of time reflecting and realizes she should have talked to me about her feelings instead of stepping out. After we finished talking, she asked if we could try again. She claims she's learned from her mistakes and wants to rebuild what we had. She told me she's willing to take things slow and prove she's different now, but I'm torn. On one hand, I've done a lot of healing in the past year, and I don't know if I can or should go back. On the other hand, I can't lie, hearing her admit her mistakes and explain her side of things made me feel something. Maybe it's closure. Maybe it's sympathy. Maybe it's old feelings creeping back. I honestly don't know. Now I'm just confused. Part of me wants to move on and never look back, but another part of me is questioning whether we both made mistakes that could be fixed now that we've grown. I can't tell if she's just trying to ease her guilt or if there's a real chance at something better. What would you guys do? Is there any point in trying to rebuild, or is it better to leave the past where it belongs? Story 4. Am I wrong for ending a 20-year marriage because I learned my wife cheated on me while we were dating? My wife, 44F, and I, 43M, have been married 20 years. We started dating in high school when I was a junior and she was a senior. We were long distance for her first 2 years of college while I was in high school and did 1 year at community college. Then we went to college in the same city for a year and have lived together since. We got married the summer after I graduated college. Our marriage has been pretty great so far, but I initiated a divorce after. I discovered that she was sleeping with multiple other men for the 2 years we were long distance. Just after Christmas, we got together with a few friends of hers from college to catch up, have dinner, and hang out. We talked about a lot of stuff, and my wife mentioned that we met in high school, not that we dated, just that we met. Her old college room commented that it was crazy that we met in high school, had a few wild years in college, then ended up together. I played along and commented that I didn't know if my wife was as crazy as I was. The roommate started to tell a story, but my wife cut her off and said she was uncomfortable about it. I sensed something was up, so I said that we actually started dating in high school and were together for my wife's entire time at college. All of my wife's friends got real quiet and the rest of the dinner was awkward. On the way out, one of her other roommates took me aside and said I should have an honest conversation about what happened at college. I asked my wife on the way home and she kind of blew me off. I told her it was important that she was honest with me, and again she said it wasn't important. When we got home, I told her I was going to stay at my brother's house until she was ready to talk about what happened in college. The next day, she came over and admitted to sleeping with several men during her first 2 years at college. She said she didn't consider it a big deal at the time because we were long distance and she didn't think a high school romance would last. I pressed for more details and she said it was at least 10 different men, including at least 3 guys. She introduced to me as friends when I came to visit on weekends, and one guy she was still in contact with. I told her that I wanted a divorce and would be starting the paperwork as soon as I could, which I did on January 2nd. Her family and most of my family is telling me I shouldn't throw away my marriage over a few mistakes. I've stood by my belief that cheating on me with multiple men for years is unacceptable, no matter when it happened, and the fact that she continued to maintain relationships with these guys right in front of me was an unacceptable amount of disrespect. We have 2 children, but they are 17 and 19, and I believe they will understand why I need to end the marriage. Am I wrong for leaving? I feel like I'm going crazy with the amount of people telling me to overlook years of infidelity and decades of lies. My wife and I are seeing a couples counselor and have been to 3 sessions now. Based on what my original post outlined and what we've talked about in counseling, I'm still moving forward with the divorce. I believe that counseling was the right move, and I appreciate folks for recommending it. I don't think it's going to save our marriage, but it has helped me communicate my feelings, helped my wife understand where I'm coming from, and most importantly, helped us be in a position to work together as co-parents. First, let's talk about the things I learned about the situation in college. After talking to my wife in sessions and texting with 2 of her roommates, it's clear that her roommates knew something was up in college. They said though the situation was weird and likely involved cheating. My wife had told them that we both had some wild times in college and worked it out before we got married, so they never really brought it up. The roommate who pulled me aside recently was uncomfortable with the fact that my wife clearly didn't talk it through with me and wanted me to know. As far as being introduced to guys she slept with, apparently that was not intended. For one of the guys, he ended up dating and then marrying one of our mutual friends from college. This is the guy she was in contact with. In the other situations, she initially blamed me in the counseling session, but has now agreed it was bad. When I went to visit her, she planned to hang out in the room or just hang out together alone. But I wanted to go to a few parties because in HS and community college, I didn't really have parties to go to. She didn't expect me to meet the guys, but they were at the parties and she felt she didn't really have a choice. I still think this is kind of shitty, but it's not as bad as her intentionally parading me in front of the guys. Most of our discussion in therapy has been talking about why I think it's a big deal and she doesn't. She initially said that none of these guys were in relationships with her and it was mostly one-night stands or FWB, since she didn't view them as romantic relationships. She didn't see the big deal, her words not mine. My opinion is that we never said that was okay and she actively prevented me from doing the same. After digging into this across 2 sessions and my wife talking to some friends, she now agrees that it was a breach of our trust relationship. This is the shared understanding that has helped us talk about this situation more honestly and helped us get from arguing to talking, which is why I'm optimistic about co-parenting. Now here's why I'm 100% set on divorce. Two things came up that make me want to leave the marriage. First, about 10 years ago, we went through a really rough patch and had a dead bedroom for about 2 years. She had expressed that our sex life was becoming boring, so I tried to spice things up, nothing crazy. Just role play and like Spencer's gift level sex toys. Apparently, she had been hung up some sexual experiences that happened in college that she is not comfortable talking about and wanted me to try them. But when I did, it made her feel awkward and guilty that it made her think of other men while she was with me. The fact that she's saying these experiences were meaningless, but they're still impacting our marriage, tells me they meant more than she wants to say. Second, she admitted that she has been flirting with coworkers on business trips since the pandemic ended. She says she has never slept with anybody, but it got as far as going on a date with one of her male coworkers. That was the absolute deal breaker for me. We have told our children that we're getting a divorce. We told them it was due to some bad decisions that we made in college that we're having trouble moving past. My 19-year-old, who is in college, asked me if I cheated on my wife while she was away at college. My wife got a little shaken up, but admitted to the kids that she's the one who cheated. We have agreed to not share any additional details with the kids. I reinforced that both us will be there for the kids and that we are in therapy to help make sure we handle this in the best way for the family. I also told the kids that if they wanted to talk to either of us or a therapist about it, that I would fully support it. We've started talking to a mediator about how to proceed with the divorce, and unless things change, we should be able to have an amicable divorce. We're both financially stable on our own, we have no major debts, and our kids are older, so custody isn't a major issue. This has been a shitty couple of months for me, but I'm doing okay now, and I honestly am grateful that my last post blew up because it both validated some of my feelings, but also motivated me to go to counseling with my wife. Story 5. Another cheating wife story. Hey guys. New here and thought I would tell my story here, especially since many of you can directly relate. I'm 33, wife is 36. I'm going to try and condense it as much as possible. I noticed over the summer my wife was extremely stressed from her job. She recently was promoted and had taken on way more responsibilities at work. Understandably, I didn't take things too personally when she would come home stressed or wake up in a grumpy mood. I didn't mind her venting to me and hearing her out and trying to be as supporting as I could. Additionally, she worked graveyard shift, so her sleep was always never enough, plus picking up hours to help her boss out. We got into some pretty harsh fights at a few points during that time span in which she was the instigator. I honestly couldn't understand why she was blowing up on me and just chalked it up to stress and just estrogen. This is when I suspect she had started to become acquainted with a coworker of hers. Come October, my wife is now working nonstop, and I notice she's putting way more effort into her appearance before going into work. I took note, but just figured she was changing her style to better suit her position. This is when I think she had made up her mind to physically cheat with this other guy. Me and her were barely spending any time together, and she just seemed severely disinterested in anything I was doing. She became a lot more withdrawn from me. She used to tell me about everything that was going on at her job, but not anymore. Barely a conversation. She would literally just go to work, come home and sleep and repeat. One night after we came home from touring a potential school for her daughter, we got into another argument. Essentially, she never communicated to me that she was going into work that night, and I was looking forward to spending time together that night. That same night after the argument, I just felt like something was off and straight up asked her if there was anyone else, which she vehemently denied, calling me crazy and ridiculous. Fast forward about a week or two. I picked up an AirTag and taped it under her car. Her behavior got increasingly more disrespectful and erratic, and she started hanging out with these girls against my wishes. Another fight happens, and she leaves the house telling me she was calling into work. Lo and behold, she went over some guy's apartment and spent the night. 12 years and 2 kids. Her excuse? She wanted attention. WTF? She has been apparently talking to him for several months. Claims she was able to open up to him and confide in him without judgment, which apparently made her decide to want to fuck him. We've done everything, therapy, me pouring my heart out, conversation after conversation. Months later, she is still in communication with him, It's pretty much a done deal with us. I'm legitimately traumatized by the betrayal and deception. It's hard to fathom how someone that you would take a bullet for can just rip your heart out like that. Story 6. My wife asked me for an open relationship. After her first date, I was gonna leave her. Now she says we should swing so that I'm not left out. 1. Seth 27M have been married to my wife, Madison 26F, for 2 years. We have been together for 4 years. I wouldn't say anything about our relationship had been extraordinary in the grand scheme of things. We met through a mutual friend and just clicked. We dated for like 18 months, then moved in together and got engaged. We had a typical small wedding 6 months later. For the first 2 years of our marriage, everything seemed fine. We have both been focused on our careers and are doing pretty well. We still make time for each other and go on dates often. 4 or 5 months ago, she landed a managerial position in her field at a different company. 1 week later, she asked me for an open relationship. I was completely blindsided by that. We have never talked about anything like that before. When I asked where this was coming from, she talked about some married coworker named Abigail that is in an open relationship. Madison and her have been talking about this since her 3rd day working there. She starts trying to sell me on this with all these bullet points. Bring us closer together, new experiences, take our sex life to the max, meet new people, etc. On initial approach, I was completely against this. I still am, yet I find myself in this stupid situation. When I first rejected it, she just accepted that and we moved on with our night. She didn't stop though, she brought it up again and again. In addition to just casual mentionings, she also began sending me stories out of our non-monogamy and our open marriage. These were all cherry-picked stories, and when I started exploring the subs on my own and sending back horror stories, she stopped doing this and said, "We shouldn't be basing our marriage adventure on someone else." She also became super wife, picking up my favorite snacks, doing more housework, trying to initiate sex all the time. I enjoyed that. But at the same time, it's not as much fun when you know there is an ulterior motive. I've been asking her if there is someone she has in mind. She swears there is, not even getting angry the last time I asked. I don't really believe her. I know her new job has quite a few guys that work there. The company is also known for recruiting heavily out of the colleges, so it's likely a lot of guys right in our age bracket. Yet she keeps pushing the same narrative of bringing us closer together and having new experiences. I can kind of see the latter point. I am only her second boyfriend. She was in a 6-year relationship prior to our meeting and had only been out of it for 3 weeks when we met. I'm slightly more experienced than her. Her being my 3rd girlfriend and 6th sexual partner. 2 months ago, she managed to break me. I had stayed pretty steadfast in that I was apprehensive towards doing anything like this. The whole time from the initial approach until that 2-month mark, she was really sweet and understanding, but also pushy. On this day, she went ultimatum. I said, "I don't think I'll ever be ready to share you with others." She responded by saying, "Maybe we should take some time apart." That was like a jab in the face. "Are you serious?" She looked sad and had a tear forming in one eye. "Yeah, I just feel confined. I understand you don't want this, but I think I need to experience things. Maybe it isn't for us, but I want to try, and it seems you don't, so I guess we are at an impasse." I asked, "You want a divorce? Am I just not enough for you anymore?" She softened. "Never about you not being enough. I just want to be open to having experiences, meeting people, and not being bound by arbitrary rules and social norms. I don't want a divorce. I want you. I just feel like I need to explore this and you don't want to. So maybe we should just take some time apart, not divorce, and see how we feel after a month or 2. This is where I caved and ended up in the position I am now. I will give it a try." She immediately perked up. "But can we take things slow? Can we come up with some basic rules?" Madison clearly excited but trying to downplay. Yes, we can just take our time, thank you. I really think this will be a good thing in the long term." She then initiated sex, which I totally went along with. A few hours ago, we had dinner with a couple we are supposed to swing with. I spent most of the dinner making small talk with Kara, a very attractive 21-year-old. She is very much my type physically, but this feels so weird. Madison and Kara's boyfriend Leland, who are co-workers by the way, were flirting and talking like this is second nature. I can't help but wonder if this was Madison's plan all along. He is a good-looking guy, so am I, but this all seems too convenient. Kara and I, however, seem a lot more apprehensive. She seems sweet, but there is definitely an awkwardness between us. Madison told me this couple wanted to swing with us because we're all new to this. I have this feeling something is up, though, between my wife and this other guy. When I caved and told Madison we could try an open relationship and that I'd like to take it really slow, she took that to mean like waiting until the next day was slow enough. I figured we would really talk about rules, read some books on ENM, ethical non-monogamy, and take things one step at a time. I got up the morning after I agreed a little later than usual. Madison had gotten up quite a bit earlier than usual. She had made us both Tinder profiles. Really had put a lot of effort into both of them. I tried to tell her this was too fast, but she countered saying, "It's just being ready for when we are ready. It could take months for either of us to match with anyone. We can take things slow, but now this part is done and we can start making matches while we figure this out." I accepted that response. However, within 24 hours, she had about 20 matches. That number just kept growing and growing as the days went by. We would try to talk about how we wanted this to go, but she was also distracted by all the activity on her phone. Within 4 days, she was already messaging directly with a few guys. 3 weeks later, she had her first date set up. We had talked about the rules and boundaries we were going to have. She had agreed to all of them, although some of them only begrudgingly. First was the obvious one: use protection at all times. We also had a few more boundaries though, like not being physical with anyone on the first date, being home by an agreed upon time or updating the other on changes, giving each other details on our dates, like location, who the other person was. This was for safety, and making our relationship a priority. This meant no canceling plans with each other for time with others. A lot of these boundaries went out the window on her first date. We had only been open 3 weeks at this point. She went out and said she would be back by 11 p.m. She came home at 12:30 a.m. I was still up. I was pretty upset at the time. She had not so much as sent a text. She clearly had done something with this guy. She was trying to come on to me, but I was rejecting it. I was done at this point and told her that she was way later than she said. There was no communication at all, and I had no doubts she messed around with this guy. She didn't try to hide it, just kept giving me the excuse that things escalated and she got caught up in the moment. She promised to do better next time, and that now that she knows she can get excited, she will have a plan for managing that. Then she tried to get me to reclaim her. I was not interested and told her so. That's when she got pissed and told me she was getting in the shower. I slept on the couch that night. The next morning, I had decided I was out. I went into our bedroom and was packing a bag. She woke up to this and asked me what I was doing. I said, "I'm leaving." She seemed alarmed and asked, "Where are you going? What do you mean you're leaving?" I told her, "I'm done. I'm going to my sister's. I'm not going to sit here around the house forever while you're out dating. You put me onto those subs to convince me. Well, I read a lot more than just what you wanted me to." Here's the reality of most of those stories, and I'm sure this would be my reality as well. You'll sort through tons of matches and pick and choose who you want. I'll go months, maybe years without a match, then eventually we will divorce once the resentment gets too high. I'm just cutting to the end now. She interjected, "You had the one match." I angrily replied, "We both know that was a bot." She jumped up then and put her hands on me. Okay, I'm sorry. You are right. We are going too fast. Please don't go. We can work this out. We can find a balance that works for both of us. You're upset right now. Let's calm down and really talk about this. I'm sorry. Nothing like last night will happen again. Trust me, we can work through this. I caved again at that point. I cave a lot. We talked later that day. It was finally the deep conversation we needed to have before we did anything. The conversation she was too distracted to have the first time. It's also the one that led to today, going to dinner with Madison and another couple, having a vibe check. Dinner was fine. Madison and Leland vibed for sure. which I found pretty annoying. I did my best to act normal. I think Kara was doing the same thing. As the night went on and it appeared like our significant others were way more infatuated with each other, Kara and I started talking a little bit about the elephant in the room. While neither of us just came out and said it, I think the real vibe here is that neither of us necessarily wanted this, and now we're just along for the ride. At least that's how it seemed to me. Before we parted ways, we traded numbers. I think I'll try texting her tomorrow just to see how much of this is actually her idea. I only have another day. We're supposed to go over to Abigail's house Saturday night for a play party, which again makes me feel like we're rushing into this. We have never done this before, but apparently we're going to join 10 other couples at a swinger party. Madison keeps assuring me it's not what I'm thinking and I don't have to do anything I don't want to, but we should go and see what it's like. She says we're just going to see if this is something we want, and if so, we can go ahead with Leland and Kara. I guess I'm going. I'm just stupid enough to keep this fail train rolling. I'm also thinking Kara is really hot, and if Madison keeps pissing me off and fucking around, I may just say fuck it and find out. Story 7. I cheated on my girlfriend. It's been 2 years since she left me, and I punish myself by staying with my AP. I hate my AP. 1. Leland 29M, have been in a relationship with Madison, 28F, for almost 2 years. I don't expect to get any sympathy here. I did this to myself. I used to blame everyone else for my problems. I used to be controlling. I used to be a sleazeball. Some people may think I still am these things, but I really try not to be anymore. It took me a really long time to realize I was my problem. To give some background, I used to do some pretty shady shit. Doing this is how I met Kara, 23F now, 18F when we met. I was 24 years old and 2 years out of college. I had done good with the girls in college and racked up a solid body count. However, when I got out of college, I wasn't really ready for anything serious and found the dating scene tougher. I had a good job, and I know I'm a good-looking guy. It wasn't that it was hard to get dates. I just ended up getting dumped or blown off more often. I was immature, I realize that now. The women in my age range that I was trying to date were looking for more. I don't mean they all just wanted to settle down and get married. Plenty of them were fine with casual dating. By more, I mean they were looking for someone who didn't get shit drunk whenever possible, play video games like it was their job, or ignore them until he wanted sex. Since this wasn't working for me, I decided to go younger. I'm not proud of it, but I used to occasionally go to parties with my little brother. He was a college freshman, so I would usually just go to his parties. But one night he was going to this party in another town. That was actually a high school party. I tagged along, and that is where I met Kara. This was in May, so she was like 2 weeks from her graduation. Not that that makes it any better. She was absolutely stunning, still is. We hit it off, and I got her snapped that night. She was going to the local university in the fall, and I lived close enough to campus. We spent most of the summer together. I realized I was falling in love with her and showed that by becoming more jealous and controlling. It was all underhanded. Early on when she wanted to go to a party or club with friends, and I knew there would be a lot of guys there, I'd do something over the top, like get concert tickets or plan a weekend vacation so she wouldn't go. Over time, I began playing the victim or accusing her of things when she had plans. I wanted to ruin her mood. I would impose myself in the things I couldn't get her to opt out of. It was all jealousy and insecurity. When her junior year started, I talked her into moving in with me. This was for me, even though I presented it as being best for her, financially it was, and I focused on that. I had her in a tough spot. She was basically acting as my housekeeper, and I held her financial independence over her head. My only attempt at balancing that out was that I did spoil her in terms of gifts and luxuries. The thing was, while she was always very appreciative, she really wasn't the kind of girl who needed all that. When I had started working at my current job, there was a woman there in an open relationship named Abigail. She was older. I liked to overhear her conversations with some of my other coworkers. Abigail was very open about her lifestyle and not ashamed of it one bit. I would often tell Kara about what I overheard because it was just so crazy. I would have never gone into something like that. The idea of sharing my girl with someone else was ridiculous. That was until I met Madison. We were flirty from her first day, and that only increased from there. After a week, she asked her husband for an open relationship. We wanted to hook up, and we didn't want to lose our significant others. It took me a lot longer to finally approach Kara, and by that time, Madison had made the situation with her husband worse. They were no longer doing an open relationship, and were going to try swinging. Of course, I lied to Kara about this and told her that Madison's open had been wonderful and we should try something like that. The dumbest part of it all is I wasn't really willing to share Kara. The idea of her with another man made me furious, which makes the swinging I asked her to go along with all the dumber. I wanted to have sex with Madison, and was willing to play the dumbest game ever to make it happen. Madison was too, though. She didn't have a lot of respect for her husband, Seth. She thought he was a pushover, and when he was going to walk out on their marriage because of the open relationship she forced on him, she had to backtrack and find a way to get what she wanted. That was swinging. She also thought this could bring him back under her thumb. I know this because she has told me so. She was so upset that he was going to leave her that she was determined to break him as we went about making this happen. We totally ignored all their pleas, all their requests for time, space, communication, clarity. We gaslit them, pushed them, falsely reassured them. I feel like such an asshole for putting Kara through that, and Seth too. He didn't deserve it either. In the end, Madison and I got our wish, we got permission, and we got the consequences that came with it. We were so delusional. We both really thought we could have our good time and they wouldn't do anything about it. Neither of us wanted them to be with anyone else. We were making rules for the not for me. Our goal was actually to have each other and them to also pay attention to us. I remember us discussing how we didn't think they'd actually do anything with each other. Even if they did, we planned on asking them to focus on us, like they were going to be okay with that. Then we made the plan. Abigail had mentioned to Madison that she was having a house party in 2 weeks. Madison had been confiding in her and getting advice from her about open relationships and then on swinging. Madison told me that could be our chance. She told Abigail about mine and Kara's desire for swinging, a half-truth. Abigail had already invited Madison at this point to get her and Seth's feet wet. Abigail then agreed to let us come as well. Madison and I were so excited to make this happen at that point. We had the vibe check, which turned out to be a big part of our undoing, as unbeknownst to us, Seth and Kara began talking. Comparing notes would be a better term. They were very much onto us. The day of the party was total tunnel vision for me. I could see the goal, and I was doing everything I could to get there. At the same time, I was such a dick, I totally ignored everything Kara was saying. We got there, we got a tour, and then I immediately looked to take Madison upstairs to the private rooms. She was more than willing to go. We were totally ignoring our partners. They just stood there and watched us walk off. I, in a complete afterthought moment, told Kara to come on, but I really didn't care. As we hit the room, we both talked about how they didn't follow us. We were excited about that, we could do this, and they wouldn't do anything. That's what we thought. We had sex for 20 to 25 minutes, then lingered a bit, talking and laughing, got dressed. I fully expected to find Kara and Seth sitting in the living room sulking. We had talked a bit about damage control with them. They were not there. Our first thought was they took a car and left. Seth did have the keys to his. We went outside only to see both vehicles still there. Then we headed to where the food was, also not there. We heard some fairly large commotion from one of the rooms. Imagine my shock as I walked in to see Kara engaging with others and having sex with Seth. There were several people in the room they had chosen to play. Madison was just as mind-blown. The fallout was massive and immediate. We screamed and yelled at each other the whole way home and through the night. She was calling me out on everything I had pulled over the course of our entire relationship. Seth and Madison were apparently doing the exact same thing. Kara left me the next morning. I was devastated by that. I feel like I became the poster child for fuck around and find out. Madison called me a week after all this went down. It was also the day after Seth served her with divorce papers. We just had a brief conversation as I was still trying to process losing Kara, Madison was cold. It was kind of weird. She didn't sound mad or sad, just neutral. Like we were talking about the electric bill being due soon. I should have taken that as my first red flag. I tried just moving on. I remember telling myself her loss. What a joke. Tara definitely wasn't losing anything. She could do so much better than me. It was about a month later. I had made a fake account and was social media stalking Kara to see what she was doing. I realized her and Seth had become a couple. She photo dumped a month's worth of outings and dates they had been on. The next week at work, Madison, who had largely ignored me that month, was back being flirty and friendly. I kind of called her out on it. She asked if I had seen that Seth and Kara were together. She said she wanted to meet after work that night and invited me over for dinner. I agreed because I figured why the hell not, might even get late again. She texted me shortly before I had gotten to her apartment to just let myself in as she was getting ready. When I walked in, she told me to relax for a moment. She would only be another minute. After about 10, I got a text from her asking me to come into her bedroom. As I walked in there, she was at the foot of her bed. She immediately started to seduce me. She was largely insatiable that entire night and insisted on me staying over, where she kept up this crazed act for most of the next day. She texted me shortly before I had gotten to her apartment to just let myself in as she was getting ready. When I walked in, she told me to relax for a moment. She would only be another minute. After about 10, I got a text from her asking me to come into her bedroom. As I walked in there, she was at the foot of her bed. She immediately started to seduce me. She was largely insatiable that entire night and insisted on me staying over, where she kept up this crazed act for most of the next day. It was when I started to get ready to head home the next afternoon that she told me she wanted us to give this a real shot. She said our souls have moved on with each other, we should do the same. We get along, have fun, sex is awesome, why not? Considering the time she had just shown me, I was all in for this. Things were good at first, however, I could tell there was something off. She wanted to document and post on socials everything we did together. I don't just mean trips or dinner dates to nice restaurants, I mean everything. If I got us Taco Bell after a long day, she made it into this sappy romantic post about how we just get each other, or he's a mind reader. She always made it sound like we were just the happiest couple ever, which really wasn't true. Yes, she was sleeping with me a lot and always planning these outings, but the conversations were bland and emotional support was not there. When my childhood cat, the cat still lived with my parents, died at 19, I was understandably sad. I was having a moment at work that day about it. I may have even had a tear or two in my eyes. She was noticeably uncomfortable. When I came over that night, she wanted to get takeout and make a post about it. I was sad and having a hard time smiling. She got annoyed, told me it was just a cat. I said I love that cat. She rolled her eyes and said, "Look, just smile for the fucking photo and stop talking about the cat. Do that. I'll take care of you and you can go be sad the rest of the night, deal?" Of course I accepted, but looking back now I realize I should have walked out and never looked back. Things only got weirder from there. We had been together about 6 months at the time. I knew she constantly checked to see what Seth was doing. One day she told me she had gotten a new phone. She read somewhere that everyone should have 2 phones, one for business and one for personal use. I could understand that if you were a public figure, but we weren't. We were just office drones. I just accepted this as it wasn't worth debating. That night we had sex with all of the lights on. Leaving the tableside lamp on wasn't unusual, but she had the overhead light on, the light in the bathroom on, the other lamp on. Afterwards, she grabbed her new phone and told me to take a picture and she would send it to me. Then she said, "Oops." I felt this wave of concern come over me. She told me she accidentally sent a pic to Seth. I got pissed off because how do you accidentally send it? And also, why would you even need his number in your new phone? Even without the resulting blow up from her the next day, I knew she sent that photo as some sort of half-baked idea to make him jealous. To his credit, he didn't take the bait at all. Instead, he sent back a video that set her off like no other. It starts as just a selfie shot of him, and he goes, "Got your pic. Glad to see you're having fun." Anyway, Kara says hi. At this point it pans over, and there's Kara in sportswear looking amazing, and she goes, Hi, Maddie. I should mention Madison hates being called Maddie. Then he pans back. We're having fun too. Video pans up to the Kings Island entrance sign. I'm going to go ahead and block this number now. And if you send another picture like this to me, I will go to the authorities. BYEEE. After this, she became increasingly insistent on us moving in together. I didn't want to, but I was also in a deep depression that I was unaware of at the time. I was in a real doom spiral of self-hate. I agreed, and I ended up moving in with Madison. She was still trying to present we are the perfect couple vibe to the world. It was bullshit. I just didn't want to be alone. As much as I was unhappy with everything, sitting at my apartment alone was worse, which is how I ended up where I am today. It was about 2 months after we moved in together I saw on Kara's socials that her and Seth had broken up. Looks like it was mutual and amicable, no real detail. That was over a year ago, and they appear to still be friends. They still interact with each other on socials, commenting on each other's posts, wishing happy birthdays. Seth was even at Kara's graduation celebration with her friends and family. When I told Madison about this, she completely changed. She already wasn't the most loving partner in the world, but she got colder. It was about 2 weeks later she came to me one night and said, "I want to be in an open relationship again. This isn't really negotiable. I also don't want a bunch of stupid rules. What the fuck is the point if there's going to be a 100 limitations? You can either be cool with this, make peace with this, or move on." I was so delusional at the time I actually thought this would be a good thing for me. The thing was I had kind of let myself go. I wasn't working out very much, I was drinking a lot, we ate out way too much. Mentally and emotionally I was putting on a tough stoic front, but on the inside I was dying. I had blown it with Kara and now was replacing that with self-destruction. I agreed to Madison's terms and told her I wanted 2 rules: use protection every time and no details unless the other person asks for them. She was fine with that. The next day was Friday. She went out after work and didn't come home until Saturday morning. I asked her where she was and she said, "With a guy?" It kind of shocked me. I don't know why. It shouldn't have. I'm sure she had him lined up before she ever asked. I just thought, okay, 2 can play this game. I was wrong. This was a very one-sided game. Over the next 3 months, our relationship went to shit. She only wanted to have sex with me right after she got back from doing it with someone else, which embarrassingly to admit I was taking her up on because otherwise I wasn't getting anything. I have no idea if she was seeing multiple people, this is what I assumed, or just the same one or two. I occasionally would ask where she was going or where she was, and she always replied, "With a guy." Meanwhile, I was having no luck on the open market. I was struggling at work, I was still drinking, my confidence was shit because I couldn't get a match to save my life. I went back to doing shady shit at this point. I switched my profile to a much younger, fitter picture from a few years earlier. When I got a match with this woman named Evelyn, I was ecstatic. She was poly-ish, and I thought maybe this would be a chance to just have something else for myself. We messaged for about 2 weeks. She was aware of Madison, and she told me a little about her long-term partner, Anthony. I wasn't honest here either, as I made it seem like Madison and I had this amazing connection. We met for dinner one night. I could tell she was a little skeptical because I didn't quite match my photo. I did my best to cover up the weight difference with the right clothes, but you could still tell some. We were actually having a pretty nice conversation when she asked what got me into opens. I chuckled and said, "Madison," but I said it weakly, and she picked up on it. Then I just kind of word vomited about how it started, and about Kara. I wasn't overly forward, but I said enough to kill the vibe. She said, "You don't really want to be doing this, do you?" I just shook my head. We talked a little bit more where she told me I didn't have to be what I didn't want to be. I said, "I know." Then she stared at me for a moment. "You also can be what you actually want to be." That hit me like a ton of bricks. I asked if she wanted to go and I'd take her back home. She said I didn't need to. She had messaged Anthony to pick her up and he was probably outside already. I paid the check and thanked her for the night, then headed out ahead of her. I got home and was thinking about what she said. It was true that I didn't like myself. I checked Kara's socials only to discover at that moment she was in a new relationship. I felt all those same familiar feelings of loss, jealousy, self-pity. I went to bed but couldn't sleep. Madison came rolling in at 2 a.m., trying to initiate with me, which was a clear indicator of what she had done that night. I wasn't interested and rejected her. She got a little pissy, but not much. She said, "Wait, you had a date tonight. How did it go? Did it go good? Must have if you don't want any." I said, "It went fine." She, in a condescending way, said, "Fine? Like you got laid fine or you got a second date fine?" I said, "I don't want to talk about it." She said, "Oh no, you had two rules. One of them is no details unless asked, and I'm asking." I begrudgingly replied, "Neither then, we won't be going out again, but it went fine." She laughed and made an L shape with her hand. "I'm kidding, I had about the opposite night, so we even out." For the first time I pressed for more details. "Yeah, what did you do then?" She said, "I ended up meeting up with this couple I've been talking to. I hadn't ever had a threesome, but that changed tonight." I actually couldn't believe that I had asked her about doing something like that repeatedly since we opened. She always told me that she wasn't interested. I decided to call her out on that. She replied, "When I said I wasn't interested, it meant I wasn't interested in doing that with you." I just walked away from her at that point and headed for the kitchen. She didn't follow, and when I heard the shower turn on, I went to lay on the couch. The next day she got up and went out to coffee with a couple of friends. I remember staring in the mirror for what must have been 15 minutes. I was thinking about what Evelyn said, thinking about how quickly Kara moved on from me, thinking about how awful it has been with Madison. I hated who I was looking at in the mirror. I made the decision to take Evelyn's words seriously. I could be the person I wanted to be. That was maybe just a little over a year ago now. I am still living with Madison. I am cordial and polite to her. She is not that way to me. I refuse to sleep with her, which has led her to go out more often. And I'm pretty sure she has at least 2 full-time FWBs. I have been sober for a year now and have been hitting the gym frequently. I might even say I'm in better shape than I was before. I put myself into work and have been getting noticed. I like taking on a little more than I have to and focusing on some of the tougher assignments. My ultimate goal is to one day be a VP. I have been attending bi-weekly therapy appointments this whole time. I really had to face a lot of my own behaviors and shame. It's been a long road of self-discovery. I think it will be very beneficial when I hit the dating scene again. I haven't even tried for a relationship during this time. I'm finally ready to move forward with my life. I haven't told Madison any of this. I don't feel I owe her anything. She's a cold and bitter woman who uses people. That might be the toughest part. She expects me to basically serve her, which I have done for a long time just to keep the peace. I am done. I have lined up a new apartment for myself and will be moving out this week. I'm just going to pack up and leave. I'll leave a note behind. I have managed to find a new job as well. A competitor was looking to fill a director position. I didn't land that position, but they also needed an assistant director, and I was offered that. There was a pay increase, so I accepted the assistant spot. I also am looking at this as a chance to grow. I don't want to go into it with any bitterness towards whoever got the director spot. Even though they will be my direct boss I'm working with on a daily basis, I'm going to do whatever I can to be of value. Well, this is long enough already. I can't wait to start this new chapter and am finally happy with the person I see in the mirror. Wish me luck.